So if you're starting a business, should you become a franchisee? For starters, what is a franchisee? What is a franchise? So think, for example, of Tim Hortons. Tim Hortons is a franchisor. So it's a big organization, one big corporation, legal entity that kind of oversees all the other restaurants. But each individual restaurant is franchised out. So there's franchisees. So they are the ones that are kind of taking the licensing agreements in order for them to have ownership rights for an individual location in a town or a city. So Tim Hortons is a franchise. They are the franchisor. And then anyone who's owning an individual location or locations is what's called a franchisee. And so they've been granted the right to own one of those separate locations and operate a Tim Hortons with approval from head office. And so restaurants are the most common type of franchise, but franchises exist in other industries as well. Think of like fitness centers, maybe even car washes, cleaning companies, moving companies, retail stores. There are a lot of different types of franchises. So now, does it make sense, or is it a good idea to become a franchisee? It depends, right? It almost always depends when it comes to questions like this. It depends on the individual, the franchise, the goals of the individual, the skill set, the stage of life of the individual. And it might not even be an individual. It might be you and your spouse, or you and a few business partners. So it really does depend. Where I would say it makes sense to become a franchisee is if you're wanting to kind of skip some of the startup steps. You don't really want to plan out the business. You don't want to decide all the different things like location and pricing and branding, and there's a long list of things to plan out when you start your own business. So for some people who don't want to worry about those things, they just want to step into ownership of a proven business where everything is kind of set up for them already. That's where it can make a lot of sense to become a franchisee. Keep in mind though, becoming a franchisee, because you're skipping a lot of those steps and you're not putting in as much work to start the business, they can be expensive. To become a franchisee for Tim Hortons or Subway or McDonald's can be really expensive. It would be significantly cheaper just to start your own business. But of course, there are benefits as well. If you just start up a Tim Hortons or a McDonald's, you have immediate market recognition, and customers are just going to come to you without really even advertising, just because they're already familiar with the franchise. So really there's more upfront cost, but there's less upfront time put in and effort and strategizing and things like that, because that's already laid out for you. Whereas on the other hand, if you're more of the type of person that wants to start something from scratch, make your own decisions, set up your own business, determine your own branding, your own business name, your own products, services, prices, methods, procedures, things like that, then a franchise is probably not for you. And that's how I am, and that's how I started my business. Very much building it from scratch, because that's more my style. I wanted to decide pretty much everything. What does the logo look like? What is the business name? What are my main services? What are my prices? I wanted to choose those things, and I was okay with putting in the time to develop that and to strategize, knowing that it would take a while to build up my business and get some brand recognition. Whereas I could have just maybe purchased a Subway, became a franchisee for a Subway, and would have had customers right away, but I was kind of just operating someone else's business model. And that's totally fine, but again, it's up to you. I think personality type is very important here, and stage of life is also very important. So if you are that type of person, maybe you have some access to money and you just want to start a business, you want to get it going, you want to have income right away, you don't care about all the planning and strategy, then I think becoming a franchisee can make a lot of sense for you. Whereas if you want to build it from the ground up and really call the shots and develop it the way you want, then it's probably not a good idea to become a franchisee.